Why is organization so difficult for neurodivergent folks? I feel like organization is honestly the bane to our existence sometimes. We may get on an organization kick and be super clean and organized for, let's say, a month or a few weeks. And then all of a sudden, our piles start to develop.
Oh my gosh!
We can't find that one thing that we need, and we don't know where it is because we don't know where we last left it. And then all of a sudden, everything we need to use in order to do something is completely misplaced. Not only are our, oh my God, I can't say that without feeling like a seal. Not only are our spaces really messy and discombobulated, but now we're struggling a lot with task initiation and task follow through. And as neurodivergent folks who have disorders and who have disabilities, I think it's important to be able to have a space where things make sense and actually is there to function in a way where you need it to and support you in the ways that you need it to. In today's video, I want to talk about organization as a neurodivergent and why it's so important for us to find an organization technique that not only makes sense to us, but is actually in turn maintainable by us. Today's video is brought to you by our lovely sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. Skillshare can help you take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or even side hustles to the next level. I have been wanting to learn American Sign Language for a while now. Luckily for me, I was able to find a lot of ASL for beginner classes. For a lot of us, once we graduate school and we no longer have to learn, we could very much so plateau in the amounts of knowledge and skill sets that we are picking up on. Which, if you're neurodivergent like me, there's an aspect of learning new skill sets for fun that we don't normally get to tap into in our daily lives. And I think Skillshare is a really great way to search up how to do something that you've always wondered about but never really got to dive into. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Now let's get back to the video. When you guys are doing anything in your life, but especially when you are trying to apply any sort of self-help advice, don't do something without knowing the why. This is a really big pitfall a lot of us have because a lot of the times we're so desperate to get the support that we need for ourselves. So we start to look for ways to do this. How can we stay organized? And we are trying really hard to get our life together, but we almost blindly follow advice without necessarily thinking about why do I even need this advice? And the thing is, if you don't know the why, it's really hard to know exactly what it is that may even help you. It's not enough to know that you need help with organization. You need to first understand why you need help with organization. So as neurodivergent folks, we need help with organization because it's going to help us with our executive dysfunction. It's going to help us with being more consistent with our life and our routines. It's going to help us be able to sustain a better well-being. It's going to help even prevent burnouts, meltdowns, shutdowns. Even just going down that list of whys gives us a lot of answers as to what sort of help we even have to look for. The next point that I want to highlight is that the why should always be supported by the how and by the what. There's no point in doing something if it doesn't support the why. If your why is to find organization techniques that works for neurodivergent brains, going into all of the whats and hows that would make sense for neurotypical people and spending your time and money doing all those things wouldn't really make sense with your why. And so you'll end up wasting time and resources on something when you could have deducted in the beginning that if those three things aren't feeding into each other properly, then there's a mismatch there. It's not enough to just look for random organizational tips. You need to specifically look for organizational tips that that is not only geared towards your neurology, but it's also geared towards your lifestyle, your habits, and your behaviors. Because neurotypical non-autistic people are going to have a completely different lifestyle, a different set of needs, a different way of processing than we do. And so organizational tips that would normally work for them and help them function a lot more is not necessarily something that could work for us. We have to take bits and pieces of advice from everywhere, and sometimes from even obscure places, and combine it together to make this hodgepodge of a method or technique that works for us and us only. The third and last point that I want to highlight is that your preference should be functional. I really love maximalism interior design. I love seeing people who have really colorful apartments and different shapes, and it's so stimulating. You see patterns and textures that you don't normally see. It's super fun and it brings me a lot of joy, but it wouldn't necessarily work for my own day-to-day life. I am actually overstimulated by all of the colors, textures, and patterns. When I'm overstimulated every single day in my own home, I'm gonna eventually begin to become disabled in a sense, because that's just one out of many things that is overwhelming me and overstimulating me. Neurodivergent folks are not the type of people to be able to sustain something unless it has flow and ease. If there's a lot of effort and even sensory sensitivities that you have to experience while being organized, you're most likely going to fall off. You're most likely going to struggle with consistency. And that's the last thing we want, right? All right, so I'm sure if you have ADHD, you are familiar with the pile system. For those of you who may not know what the pile system is, it's essentially when you collect a bunch of random items in a certain pile while doing an activity or task. And instead of returning all of the things you used back to its rightful place, you leave them where you last used them. The pile system is functional to a certain extent. It's functional in a sense where it allows you to better do a certain task or activity because it's all consolidated in one area. But it becomes dysfunctional in a sense where when you need to do something in another area, you can no longer find that item because you're not really sure where you last left it. I have experimented with so many different organizational methods. Some work better than others, but it was always never quite right. Either everything was organized and looks good and I could never really flow with it, so I end up not using anything at all, or things become too messy. So there's too much flow, but then at a certain point, I begin to get too discombobulated. There's this very weird sweet spot that I've been trying to pin down for so long, where things make sense and I'm able to flow with it so that I could do my day-to-day stuff, and then it doesn't take much to maintain it because it makes sense to me and it's fun. And I finally found it, you guys. I finally found a system that works for me. And so I want to come and share it with you guys. So my technique actually takes the pile system and adds organization in a way that can interplay with that pile technique rather than exclude the pile technique, so that we could still freely tap into the pile system in order to get our tasks and activities done. And on top of that, be able to still maintain organization so that the next time we want to develop a new pile or another pile, we know exactly where to get the items. This is all about functionality and flow. The two F's, functionality and flow, functionality and flow. All right, so I'm gonna call this neurodivergent friendly organizational technique the foraging technique. The only two metaphors that we're going to need for this technique is home and foraging. But don't worry, you guys, I am going to explain to you what these two metaphors mean and how they play a role within this technique. So let's start off with the concept of home. The concept of home is the idea that every item needs to have a home, and the home has to make sense for the item so that you don't have to think about where the item is. You just know where it is automatically and intrinsically. A basic list of homes that I could give you guys right off the bat is kitchen, laundry, bathroom, bedroom, closet, living room, storage, and office. This part is easy, right? Any sort of kitchen item whether that's groceries, spices, pots and pans, bowls, cups, cutlery, whatever it is, their home is going to be in the kitchen. Likewise, skincare, hair products, toothbrush, toothpaste, towels, their home is going to be in the bathroom. So on and so forth, okay? It's important for every item to have a home because we want to be able to know where every item is when we need to use it. Taking that sort of mental legwork out is going to be very, very crucial for us. Imagine every single time you needed something, you could immediately go get it because you know where it is and it's easily accessible. Which leads me to the next thing about the home. Not only does your item need to be in its home, but it has to be easily accessible. As neurodivergent folks, we have sensory sensitivities, we have executive dysfunction we're dealing with, and we have so many other things in our life that we have to consider and worry about. And so little things like something being out of reach and you have to almost climb onto a countertop to go grab it. Or something being put in the back of a shelf. And so you have to take everything out of the shelf in order to reach it and then put everything back into the shelf is enough to make it so that we don't use that item. Not because we don't know where it is, but because we don't want to go through the work to gain access to it. Being able to see something and gain access to it is important. And this part, I'm not going to give too much advice on because everyone should experiment with different ways to store things away, and people have different preferences, right? So some neurodivergent folks can benefit from having open shelves and being able to see where everything is, and some neurodivergent folks would prefer to have everything put away. Regardless, that's something that I feel like is so subjective. So it's up to you to figure out what works for you. But I will add, every sort of aesthetic choice should be functional for you. I actually prefer to see things put away. When I go and open up a drawer and things like that, things aren't laying on each other or blocking each other. I'm able to see it all at once. If something is tall, I have a step stool. I could just get the step stool and grab the thing. But even then, I try not to store things high up unless I rarely use it. But even if I rarely use it, I store it high up and in a place where I could easily see it. None of this will matter if you don't return these items back to their home. If the next time you need to use it, you don't know where to find it. And so it's important for you to develop a good relationship with returning things back to its home. This is why I use the metaphor of home and foraging, because I want you guys to get used to making this sort of process fun rather than seeing it as another chore of like, oh my God, I have to clean up and organize. Think of every item in your house as something that belongs somewhere. And every time you use it, you're borrowing it for a second, but it needs to go back to where it belongs. This highlighter is not just a highlighter. It's a cute little guy that helps me identify specific words or sentences that are more important than others, and I'm using him right now to do my work. But at the end of the day, he wants to go home. He doesn't want to be out by himself, just sitting on my desk, cold and lonely. I want him to be returned back to his home, which is in here with the other pens and highlighters so that he could be warm, cozy, and with his community. This is where the foraging comes in handy. This is the part I'm super excited about. Let's get into foraging. And foraging to me is just a fun way to use the pile system to our advantage. Think about librarians, think about employees at the grocery store. You know how they have to constantly take items that were used and placed elsewhere and put it back where it belongs? Maybe someone grabbed a box of cereal because they wanted to buy it, but then abandoned it last minute at the checkout line. And what if someone comes in later and needs that cereal, but they can't find it? It's the employee's job to take that box of cereal and put it back with the other boxes of cereal. Likewise with books. When people check out a book and then return it, the librarian has to take all of those books and put it back where it belongs so that other people coming in looking for those books can find them. And so the way that I like to integrate my foraging technique is to have little foraging baskets. And so anytime I have to do something and it consists of multiple tasks or activities, but I'm doing it all in one place, instead of just creating a random pile, I take my foraging basket and I go around my house to the different homes and I just take what I need for the activity that I'm going to do and I put it in my basket. So I'm basically foraging for berries. And then when I have everything I need, I sit down and I just enjoy myself and I lose myself for a few hours. And once I'm done there, I have my foraging basket with all of the items. I go back to all of the homes and I return every item back to its home until the foraging basket is empty and ready to go for the next time I need to forage. I almost imagine myself being someone living in the forest. And instead of just thinking of my nighttime as, oh, I have to do my skincare, I have to take my makeup off, I have to do this, this, and that, I just forage all of those things I need. And then I bring it over to my living room where I watch TV. And then I could just spend the evening slowly doing those things while watching TV. And there's no rush. There's no drastic transitions of to the bathroom, to the bedroom, to the living room, and all that kind of stuff. And I end up being able to seamlessly do everything I need to do in one area. And so here is an actual example of one of my foraging baskets that I use for the evening/nighttime. I have baby wipes in order to wipe off my makeup. I have makeup remover. I have medications that I have to take at night. And I put my medication in my foraging basket because it's already hard for me to swallow pills. And so if it's put away on top of that, I'm just going to completely avoid it. So being able to keep it in my foraging basket and having it there makes it easier for me to be able to be on top of my medication. I also have this toothpick for moments where I'm just sitting on the couch and I could go in on every tooth and scrape out whatever food is in there. I will be damned if I stood in front of my bathroom mirror for 15 to 30 minutes just meticulously scraping out the food. I would be so bored and my body would be in so much pain just standing there. Hand lotion, because sometimes when I'm sitting there watching TV, it's nice to just be busy with your hands and have some tactile thing that you're doing. These are all things that I would normally ignore and not do if I had to do it in my bathroom, because I don't really want to just stand in my bathroom for an hour doing all these things. It's easier to do it while laying on the couch and watching TV and have it be basically a stim. And then I have, a moisturizer. And then I have 2 hair clips for my bangs so that when I'm doing all that stuff on my face, I could just clip my bangs back. And yeah, that basket is basically my nighttime/evening basket of items that I foraged from their homes. And then at the end of the night, I go back and I put these things where they belong. And that's basically the foraging technique. It's super simple. It's easy to understand, I'm hoping. And it weirdly allows you to be more organized than just thinking of it as I have to do this, I have to put this back, I need to maintain this. Like that will so quickly kill your will to do the activity and to maintain organization. You want everything to make sense and to flow and for you to want to do it. But yes, I hope today's video has been helpful for you. I hope that the way that I explained my foraging technique came across and it's easily digestible and understandable. I am so excited to see you guys try it out if you guys do, and be sure to report to me whether it works for you or not. If it ends up working for you, that would make me so happy, because I just love imagining neurodivergent folks out there finally being able to utilize tools that can actually benefit them and make sense to them. Be sure to give this video a like and send it to someone if they would find this technique helpful. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video and supporting the content. We're all just trying to learn new skills, new techniques that could better enrich our lives and better support us. Make sure you take some time to drink some water, eat some food, take yourself on a walk. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.